Hi, I'm Dr. Bertice Berry, and I want to tell you a story. Stories connect us. They connect us and help us to find the narrative that is in our soul that wants to be remembered. That happened yesterday when we started a new page called Stories to Tell with Dr. Bertice Berry. On this page, newcomers are sharing their stories that are provoked through a story that I've shared. At least that was the intention. Helen McMaster shared a story that moved me to a story that I had forgotten about. Sometimes life can get so busy and in the way, and the things that are happening that are significant that we need to remember, that we need to know, that we need to feel, are caught up in the bill paying and the child raising and the spreadsheets. Helen McMaster's story about her grandmother, her sight, her birds, took me immediately to my mother. We had just moved here to the Savannah area, and there was a giant, one of those big ship barges going by. And I turned to my mother and I said, "Look at that giant ship, Mom." And with tears in her eyes, she said, "I can't see it." "What are you talking about?" She said, "I see something fuzzy and gray, but I can't see it." My grandmother had been blind, and I assumed that this was either something of birth or something of something, but the story hadn't been told about my own grandmother's blindness. It was caught behind the colorism, and all the other stuff. So my mother said, "Yeah, I can't see." We didn't know anyone, but an electrician was at our home, and he was a self proclaimed good old boy. I turned to him and said, "Do you know an eye doctor?" He said, "Why, yes, I do." He gave me the name of a great surgeon, doctor. It was a father and son team. And I called and I explained what was going on. And they said, "Can you get here today?" I said, "Yes." They gave me directions. I wish they hadn't. It was all things like, "You know where the Walmart used to be?" "No, ma'am, we just moved here." "Well, do you know where the Food Line used to be?" "No, ma'am, we just moved here." And so often we are caught up on what used to be that we can't tell people how to get to where they need to go today. Anyway, we found the place. And this beautiful doctor examined my mother's eyes and said, "Oh, how long has it been this way?" And my mother told him that it had been that way some time. I said, "But Mom, you read the newspaper every day." She said, "No, I just hold it. I assign the reading of the newspaper to the children, and they've been reading it to me, and so I can find out what's going on in the world, and then I can tell the stories back to you." The doctor said, "Well, you got her here just in time. There's a little bit still firing, and we can work with that." He asked my mother what her hobbies were, and she smiled and she said, "I love to read, I love the birds, and I love to do laundry, but laundry comes first." They started talking about birds together because he was also a birder. And he was sharing the birds, the Georgia birds that she didn't know yet. And she said, "I can't wait to see them." She had eye surgery maybe a week later. And as soon as we left, she said, "Ooh, look at the cracks in the sidewalk." And then she looked up and a bird landed. And she said, "Hello, old friend." My mother would sit on the porch every single morning just talking to those birds. And on the day she died, a giant red-tailed hawk sat on the post of our porch and didn't leave. I don't know how I forgot that story. It's not that it wasn't forgotten, it was buried under the day-to-day life. And it's through our stories and the connection of those stories that we find our soul again. My niece recently moved here. She sits on the porch. She's named the squirrels. My mother used to do the same thing. And now the birds have all come back for her. And they hang out. And she'll tell anybody, Nanny's here. I'm so grateful to Helen, to her story, to her grandmother. We are wired for narrative. And in the reading and the seeing and the sharing and the listening of the stories, we find our own. I love you.